Well, this past couple years, we've seen a big push of people moving out of the bigger cities into the smaller cities, especially here in Alberta, where a lot of people are moving from the big cities like Toronto and Vancouver. And today we're going to compare the top 3 small cities in Alberta, Airdrie, Lethbridge, and Red Deer, and go over some of the pros and cons of living in each city. Now, small cities have their perks, and there are many features that make different cities an ideal place to live for different people. So hopefully this video gives you a good idea of each, or helps you decide which might be a good fit for you if you are planning on relocating. So let's get into it and see if we might just persuade you to move to one of these cities. Now, I'm Brad Walker, your local Airdrie realtor, but if you do decide to buy a home in any of these cities, I'd love to have a chat, and I can refer you to a great agent in either Red Deer or Lethbridge. And we're going to take a look at a bunch of different factors for our comparison today, including location, demographics, amenities, outdoor recreation, economy, housing, and you'll want to stick around to the end because last but definitely not least, we're going to look at the crime in all 3 cities to see where the safest place is going to be for you and your family. Alright, so starting with location, let's pull up a map here and show the 3 cities and where they are in the province. Red Deer is right in the middle of Calgary and Edmonton. Airdrie is just north of Calgary, and Lethbridge is the furthest south in the province, as you can see there down on the southeast corner of the province. Now, looking at Lethbridge specifically, people do like this location because it's reasonably close to multiple places if you're looking at day trips. It's under 2 hours to the BC border, which makes it closest to BC out of the 3 cities, and it's also the closest of the 3 to the province of Saskatchewan on the east side. So if you're looking to make trips to your neighboring provinces often, then Lethbridge definitely is a good location for it. You're also only about 90 minutes to the Rocky Mountains or an hour from the US border going into Montana, so it's a great location for those day trips to a bunch of different places. But on the downside is that it's furthest away from any of the bigger cities in Alberta, being about a 2-hour drive to get to Calgary. Now, in Lethbridge, you'll find the terrain is mostly prairie with grassy hills. There is a river valley running through, which is quite nice though here in Lethbridge. And now moving on to Airdrie, one of the big pros to Airdrie's location, as you can see on the map, is the proximity to a big city and an international airport. Being only 10 minutes north of Calgary allows you to enjoy living in a small city while being very close to the amenities of a big city. And Calgary's airport is on the north side of the city, so in Airdrie you're only about 20 minutes away from the biggest airport in the province. Now, Airdrie is also the closest of the 3 to the Rocky Mountains. It's only about a 1-hour drive to those mountains, which makes it very easy to spend a morning at a ski hill or an afternoon in Banff. And in and around Airdrie, you'll find prairie fields that definitely make Airdrie the flattest of the 3 on this list today. Now from here, if you take the trip north on the number 2 highway, Red Deer is about an hour and a half from Calgary, and the same distance north up to Edmonton, about an hour and a half. So it sits right in the middle of our 2 biggest cities in the province. And like Airdrie, Red Deer is built around that number 2 highway in Alberta that runs north-south, which makes it really convenient to go to the north or go to the south to those big cities. And that's the biggest pro for location for Red Deer, especially if you think you'll be going to both big cities fairly often. Now, there are some nice lakes in the Red Deer area that you can enjoy in the summertime, but you will be the furthest from the Rocky Mountains of these 3 cities. And the landscape definitely changes a bit here too in Red Deer. It's less prairie land and more trees and hills here than you're going to find in places like Airdrie, which definitely adds to a bit of the scenery of the area. Now, location does play a big part in the weather too. Now, all 3 get nice and hot in the summer and cold in the winter. However, the cold never seems to last long because of the Chinooks that we get here in southern Alberta, the warm winds that sweep away that cold air in the winter time. And this is especially true in the southern parts of Alberta, and it happens more the more south you go. So it happens most around Lethbridge, a little less in Airdrie, and even less frequently in Red Deer. Now, the Chinooks can be a good and a bad, and are a big reason why Lethbridge in particular gets the name of Windy City. So being more north, Red Deer does get slightly harsher winters that last a little bit longer as well. Now, all 3 cities get plenty of sunshine though, with 333 days a year of sun in the Calgary and Airdrie area, 324 days in Red Deer, and 320 days of sunshine in Lethbridge. Alright, now into population. Airdrie is sitting at just over 80,000 people, while Red Deer and Lethbridge are over that $100,000 mark. Lethbridge at 106,000 and Red Deer just a couple thousand more people than that. This factor definitely contributes to the overall feel of each city, with Airdrie having more of a large town feel, where Lethbridge and Red Deer definitely have more of a city feel to them. And as for the average age in each city, Lethbridge sits as the oldest with an average age of 40 years old. Red Deer just trails behind just slightly at 39, and Airdrie has the youngest population by quite a bit at an average age of 34. Now the Lethbridge age surprised me. I thought it would be younger since it has a big student population with the university and college there. With students removed, that average age in Lethbridge would be actually quite a bit higher than 40, so definitely something to consider if you're moving to that area. Now on the other hand, the young average age in Airdrie definitely makes sense, as children with families make up a big portion of every neighborhood we see here in the city, and the city also accommodates this through different infrastructure and keeps families in mind for future development plans as well. Alright, now we're going to take a look at the amenities in each of the cities, and starting with Red Deer. Red Deer has all the amenities of a large city in a smaller sized package with convenient locations throughout the city. There won't be much you can't find within the city, with 2 good-sized shopping malls and a lot of local specialty stores. Now there's mixed opinions on the public transit system, some saying it's slow and you'll still have to walk a bit, but clunky transit seems to come along with most small cities, and it's the exact same in both Airdrie and Lethbridge. So overall, amenities wise, you're going to have everything you need here in Red Deer. The drawbacks here would be if you like to go to the big city for additional shopping and entertainment, such as big sporting events, concerts, and other nightlife like that the big city provides. You're not going to have that here in Red Deer, and you're not really going to be close to it here in Red Deer, but you do have the option of going either north to Edmonton or south to Calgary, and both are about an hour and a half away. Now in Lethbridge, again, you're going to have everything that you need, but maybe not a whole lot more than that. Although there is a shopping mall and local retailers, it doesn't have that same level of diversity when it comes to shopping and entertainment as you're going to find in Airdrie and Red Deer. You're also the furthest away from those major cities compared to the other two on the list, as we mentioned, being about 2 hours from Calgary and about 5 hours from Edmonton. And Lethbridge also is quite spread out, which means you pretty much have to drive here to get to where you're going. Now it does have a limited public transit system, but as I mentioned earlier, and that's going to be the case for most small cities, is it's fairly clunky in Lethbridge as well. Now for Airdrie, there's a pretty wide selection when it comes to its range of stores. Everyday essentials like grocery stores, hardware stores, drug stores, big box stores such as Walmart are all within reach here, similar to Red Deer and Lethbridge. And with Airdrie not being very spread out, you're only going to be about a 10 to 15 minute drive at most to get to where you're going within the city, and even less if you live more central in the city. And as for malls, one of the biggest malls in the country, Cross Iron Mills, is just 5 minutes away from Airdrie, being right in between Airdrie and Calgary. And there's also another mall in there that not a lot of people know about, the New Horizon Mall. That's more of a marketplace style shopping mall with small kiosks and a lot of different variety of stores that you're not going to typically find in your normal shopping malls. And now for restaurants, you'll have plenty to choose from with lots of franchise restaurants and fast food chains, and you'll find this in Red Deer and Lethbridge as well. And you also have a growing number of local places to eat at with different styles of food. And the nice thing about Airdrie being the most diverse of the 3 cities is that you get a lot of different selections of stores and restaurants that come with that diversity. It gives you the opportunity to try different things and see different items on those store shelves. Alright, well now you've done some shopping, you've eaten, now let's look at our outdoor recreation. Now Lethbridge has a lot to offer in terms of those outdoor activities, with the main attraction being over 200 kilometers of well-maintained pathways throughout the city and in the river valley. Just looking at the satellite map of Lethbridge and you'll see how much open space there is in the city. Now that being said, Red Deer also has over 100 kilometers of pathways as well, with many of it being in those nature areas in that river valley. And the number of parks here in Red Deer is actually more than the other 2 cities as well, because you get more of those treed areas around that riverbed. And now looking at the paths in Airdrie, while there are a lot of them, they're typically more to connect the different communities together versus being nature walking paths. And this is the downside of not having a big river run through the city like Red Deer and Lethbridge have. You have less opportunity for that natural riverbed nature space that you can build more of a natural feeling park space around. And while Lethbridge has the Old Man River and Red Deer has the Red Deer River, Airdrie only has Nose Creek, and Nose Creek is a smaller stream that flows through the city, allowing for some fishing but no swimming or boating opportunities at all. Now the bigger rivers in Red Deer and Lethbridge allow you to float down in the summer, do a little boating, go swimming, have campgrounds nearby, and things like that. Now, of course, in Airdrie being close to Calgary, there is opportunity in the big city for water recreation, but not right in town. You'll find in Airdrie, instead of enjoying a river in town, many people are just going to head to the Rocky Mountains for their outdoor adventures, since it is the closest to the Rockies of all three. Alright, well, now you've had your fun, let's get down to the serious stuff like the economy and the schools. While all three of the city's economies are relatively thriving, Lethbridge has a diverse economy with a range of industries including agriculture, healthcare, education, and manufacturing. This means that residents there have access to a variety of different job opportunities, and it's usually fairly easy to find work in their field of expertise. Now, in Airdrie, many people work in professional offices, stores, or trades jobs, with a large number of people who commute to the bigger city, to Calgary, for work. It's become a great place for people to live for those who work in the big city but don't necessarily want to live there. And it's also a great place to start a business and become fairly well known fairly quickly, with a big emphasis here on shopping and eating locally within the city. Now, Red Deer is seeing more jobs open up, but it still has a 7% unemployment rate, which is the highest of the three by almost 2%. Now, many people here work in healthcare, construction, oil and gas, and manufacturing, but they do have that higher unemployment rate. And now, as for post-secondary schools, Red Deer Polytechnic is a great institute in Red Deer with a wide range of offerings. Its campus is a lot smaller than Lethbridge, or of course the ones in Calgary, but it still is a good school that has gone through some recent updates as well. Now, Lethbridge is home to two post-secondary schools, the University of Lethbridge and Lethbridge College. Both are well regarded and offer a wide selection of programs such as arts, science, business. Now, these are why Lethbridge has such a large student population, with about 12% of the population in Lethbridge attending either the university or the college. Now, as for Airdrie, Airdrie only has the Bow Valley College, which is a small building used mostly for adults looking to upgrade or people taking shorter courses. But as is the trends you've noticed in this video already, the actual universities will be within Calgary, and though they're not right in Airdrie, they are huge campuses, and a lot of students will live in Airdrie and commute to school in Calgary. Alright, now on to housing in each city. Now, typically what we see is that the closer you live to a major city, the more expensive the housing prices get, and this case is definitely no exception. One of the biggest advantages to living in Lethbridge or Red Deer is the low cost of housing. Compared to Airdrie and a lot of other cities in the province, they just have cheaper housing prices and rent prices, making it appealing for those who want the freedom that comes with lower cost of living, if you're okay with being further from the big city. Now, looking at the specifics of pricing, let's look at the detached homes first. We're going to take a look at the average prices. In Airdrie, looking at an average price of $569,000 for a detached home. In Lethbridge, this goes all the way down to $421,000, and in Red Deer, it's cheaper yet, being around $411,000 on average for your detached home. And now, looking at condos in the cities, Airdrie has an average condo price of $240,000 compared to Red Deer and Lethbridge that are both right around $165,000 for the average condo. And now, looking at the rental prices, it's a bit harder to get accurate data around rentals because we don't track the actual rented price here in Alberta like we do with sales, but it seems that the rentals will be about 20% cheaper in Red Deer and Lethbridge compared to Airdrie, obviously depending on what you're looking at. Alright, now on to our last topic of the video, and that's going to be the crime rates in each of these three cities. And what we're going to do is we're going to compare how these three cities stack up to each other and also to the Alberta and Canadian averages. So we're going to look at overall crime first, and then we're going to look at violent crime, and then property crime. Alright, so overall crime. The Alberta overall crime rate is 8,722 incidents per 100,000 people. The Canadian rate is 5,856 incidents per 100,000 people. And Airdrie for overall crime up against these provincial and national numbers looks pretty good, with a crime rate of 4,648 incidents per 100,000 people, which is quite a bit better than both the Alberta and the Canadian rates. Now, Lethbridge doesn't look as good with a rate of 13,469 incidents per 100,000 people, and Red Deer is actually the highest of all three with a crime rate of 14,934 incidents per 100,000 people. So both Red Deer and Lethbridge are quite a bit higher than the national and provincial average for total overall crime. And now, moving on to property crime, our Alberta crime rate is 5,159 incidents per 100,000 people. The Canadian rate is 3,181 incidents per 100,000 people. And now comparing that to Airdrie's property crime, where we see 2,750 incidents per 100,000 people, which again is quite a bit lower than both those Alberta and Canadian rates. And in Lethbridge, we see a property crime rate of 7,967 incidents per 100,000 people. And in Red Deer, that jumps up to 8,834 incidents per 100,000 people. So again, Lethbridge and Red Deer come in higher than the average for property crime. And lastly, looking at our violent crime rate, and in Alberta, our rate is 1,232 incidents per 100,000 people, and the Canadian rate is 1,042 incidents per 100,000 people. Now looking at Airdrie's first again, we see a violent crime rate of 656 incidents per 100,000 people, which again is below the Alberta and Canadian averages. And moving on to Lethbridge, we see a violent crime rate of 1,902 incidents per 100,000 people, and in Red Deer, we have 2,109 incidents per 100,000 people. So as far as crime in these three cities, we have a pretty clear winner, with Airdrie being better than average in all the categories, and Red Deer and Lethbridge being quite a bit worse than both the provincial and national rates in every category. So it's hard to argue that Airdrie is simply the safer city of the three, and by quite a large margin. Alright, well now after going through all of that, please comment down below which city is your favorite of the three. If you already live in one of these cities, be sure to put your vote in the comments, and we'll see which city is more popular down in the comments. And again, my name is Brad Walker. I'm a local Airdrie realtor, so if you're looking to buy or sell a home in the Airdrie or Calgary area, I'd be more than happy to help. And if you do want to move to one of these other areas in Alberta, let me know and I'd be more than happy to have a chat with you and connect you with a great agent in one of those markets. And for now, have a great day and we'll see you in the next video.